Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to continue on with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is we're going to check out. Today's comes at us from Linus. Absolutely no context on this one. We're diving into some Spawn of Possession. The track is The Evangelist. We got a 10-minute epic ahead of us, so let's dive into it and see what Spawn of Possession is bringing to the table today. Just a ton of dissonance throughout this entire opening. The bass work is wild, the composition is very complex. So this is tech death, right? Got them blast beats in there. Really interesting to hear those two guitars working together in the way that they are, where they split off, do their own thing for 2 beats, and then come back together for 2 beats, still doing their own thing but working together very well. This is intense. Each just an onslaught of riffage. Not all of them even flow together well, but they just get smashed in. Interesting harmonic shift. A lot of use of the fourth intervals. Fourth is used for a lot of tension. It's one step away from the fifth, which is probably the most stable. Well, it is the most stable if you ignore the octave. I can't believe there's still like 3 more minutes of this. Man, there's just... I know there's still so much time left, but it felt like we were cooling down a little bit. There's just no rest from the intensity nor the tension. It's interesting that they're exploring heavy tension here, but also momentary relief. Yeah, that relief is gone. It was... It's been be replaced with dread. And these harmonies definitely align themselves with madness, frequently utilized as a trope for a break with reality. That was a trip. Just a consistent, relentless attack of dissonance and noise. I say that in the most positive way I can. There is there is a melodic quality to most of the riffs, but I think the intention is still mostly to fill space with sound. The strong riff game simply comes from the fact that it's tech death, and so there is a technical expectation of probably the band. I've heard Spawn of Possession be thrown around quite a bit, especially after I came to enjoy a bit of tech death here and there. I think that's why Nile got tossed my way to do a full reaction on them last month, I think it was, month before. So I've seen this name tossed around. I'm pretty sure I've heard a couple tracks here and there in isolation. So they have this tech element that they have to work within. And I don't say that because they play tech death, so they must play tech death, that kind of idea, but just that that's what they are most comfortable with. And it might even be an element of them. If they wrote anything more simple, any varying levels of simplicity, that they wouldn't enjoy it. They wouldn't enjoy playing it. They wouldn't want it tied to their name. There's a lot of things that go into that. Maybe they are simply incapable of writing something simpler. They try to write something simple and it comes out complex. So I'm not saying that they have to write something technical because of the genre they are in. They're not pigeonholed within it. I mean, they might be, but I don't get that feeling. It could very well just be something to do with them. They don't want to do anything different. So what I'm getting at though is that this is very much like the noisy stuff that we hear in mathcore, um, but done so with a harmonic ear. This, I think, is as noisy as you can make structured music in the metal realm. And so it simultaneously comes off as, exceptional music, where the musicality of it, the rhythmic qualities, the constant contrast, and the skill required to perform it are all very visibly top notch. These are some of the musicians that are at the top of the metal game, but there's another half to this song that's very easily overshadows some of the complexity and chops at times, and that's just the sheer quantity of sound. It can at times shift from something feeling like an exceptional work of music to a barrage of noise. And it's interesting, at least for my experience, when my brain flipped between the two. I don't think that there's any section in the track that really leans into one more than the other outside of the use of heavy dissonance intervals in places. The drums never go into a noisy collage of sounds. There's always some sort of underlying pattern or reason behind what the drums are doing. Same with the vocal rhythms and the guitar work, the bass lines. Everything always has some sort of purpose to it. It's easy to see why they chose to go in the direction they did. Nothing ever comes off as noise for noise sake, but I find it impressive that it is a song that is both musically and noisy proficient simultaneously. Now, beyond the sheer chops here, which I'll probably dig into, give some shout outs to specific things later, because there's a lot in here to just have your jaw drop to the floor about. One thing that stands out to me is a lack of cohesion. All of the riffs in a vacuum are interesting, well done, and well performed, but rarely do any of them make any sense next to each other. We did this riff, and now we're doing this riff, and now we have this pattern, and then this riff, and these two things are doing their own things over here, and now we're gonna bring them together and do this that has nothing to do with what we were doing. And like the sheer quantity of riffage in here that is interesting on some level is impressive, but it's just a flurry of sound. None of it comes together to tell me a larger idea, and maybe that whirlwind of sound is the story, but it also feels like it leans a bit on the noodly side, where it is a flurry of sounds because that's what tech death can be. Um, I like some tech death, but it's one of the genres, much like most of the progressive styles of metal, that can definitely lean a bit too far into the technical side and it loses some of the emotive qualities, and that's kind of what I feel here. Again, I say again, like I've said it before this video, I say it on the channel all the time though. It's possible we hit the lyrics and the aggression, the lack of cohesion, the single focus. This is a song that doesn't do anything different for about 7.5 minutes, despite all of the section. There's like 50 riffs in here, but they all do the same thing generally, aside from our final 90 seconds or so. Um, maybe that's the purpose of it all. It's supposed to be this, train off the rails. Everything just kind of blurs together into this one sound, despite going 100 miles an hour across this landscape. And if you were going slower, you might be able to appreciate all the nuance, the differences. But now it's just a blur of green. The hills, the trees, the fields, they all look the same at this speed. And that's kind of what I'm getting with this track. It's a lot of contrast doing the same stuff, and it all kind of comes off as a bit noisy and disconnected to me. So I don't really have a strong read on the core 7.5 minutes of this track, give or take. It's impressive. And it's definitely aggressive and abrasive, and there's a ton of friction to my enjoyment of it, at least. But on the sheer performance level, and even in some places on the compositional level, I'm in total awe of what they're doing. The sheer endurance to pull this track off, much less an entire set list of stuff like this, is ridiculous. But I'm a bit. I've been picked up by a tornado, and I have no sense of direction in this song to really gauge or talk about most of it aside from the concept that I'm in a tornado. I'm being thrashed around, and that's the best read I have on this track. Now, speaking of sheer skills, chops, I do just want to point out a couple of things. The drums are ridiculously solid. If somebody told me that it's just, a guitarist and a vocalist, and the guitarist records the vocal, and the guitarist records the bass too, so it's like a two-man project, and they have a drum machine for the drums, I would straight up believe you, especially when we got to the end and we kind of did the halftime feel and just a slow, weighty section, and we had those alternating bass kicks, and they were perfect, mechanically perfect. Now, some of it could be done in post as well. You just kind of tweak this note this way, that beat this way, and you kind of fix it up so it has that perfection. And I don't know if that's something they do. I kind of get the impression that a lot of tech death has a bit of help, a little bit of makeup done in the production side. They're all solid live too, but the studios are perfect, right? Whereas live they're going to be 98%. They're still ridiculously impressive, but lacks that sheer robotic perfection. And that could be what's happening here. Um, I'm not saying that this isn't a human, but if you tell me it's a drum machine, it's not going to shock me at all. This playing is just precise, and I mean that goes for everything too. The guitar work, the bass work, some of these starts and stops, the shifts between muted notes and fully rung out notes. It's just the rapidity. Is that a word? How rapid something happens? Of the harmonic changes, the attack changes, how you're hitting the note, what you're doing on the guitar to affect the note. It's a flurry of just sounds. I feel like I'm repeating myself, even though I'm talking about a brand new topic. I am making an analysis of the song by way of the song's use of contrast through similarity. Not intentional. Um, I just only have one thing to say about this song, I guess. No matter what topic I get on, it always comes back to the cyclical aggression of the track. Um, But yeah, the bass lines were sick. I mean, tech death is one of those genres where you can pretty much guarantee the bassist is going to be pretty sick, and I love that. I'm not disappointed here. The bassist has some phenomenal lines, gets to contribute to what the overall sound is. Isn't just doing pedal tones, has presence in the mix. I mean, it's everything I love about tech death bass work. The vocalist for me, as usual with this stuff, is the weak point. It is one note. Rhythmically, it is usually fairly rigid. There's nothing here that's really technical on a rhythmic passage. It has one texture to it the whole time. I didn't hear any variety in it. It's it becomes background noise. It becomes static at a certain point, and it's the weakest part to a lot of tech death. You know, I tend to bring up Archspire because honestly, it's sort of my point of interest for tech death. They got me into it, and I still kind of hold them up as some of the best that I've heard. But the vocal complexity is really what brings me to what elevates them above the rest is you know, their vocalist has a few different sounds. It's not like they bring in cleans or have, you know, fry screams or anything like that. It's still all growls and grunts. But there's a little bit of timbre diversity, and then there's just a ton of rhythmic diversity. It almost feels like rapping at times with the flow change ups. And that's, I think, is the real big differentiation between a tech death band that I'm going to enjoy and one that I'm going to find is mid. Still, you know, a great track here. But the vocals are just nowhere near the level of everybody else. And that's something I feel with a lot of tech death bands. And that's where Spawn of Possession lands for me as well. Everybody is doing phenomenal stuff. And then I'm like, oh, you know, these guys were awesome. That was awesome. The bass work's sick. Oh, listen to that drum fill. The growler's still just growling. Nothing's changed there in the last 10 minutes. So let's check into something else. And I don't ever want to come back to the vocals. And that's a shame. Not because the vocals need to be good or interesting, but simply because the rest of the band is at this level and the vocalist is down here. And having some of that technical aspect of your technical death metal in your vocals really elevates it when it makes it feel like a full band effort for technicality. I don't know, maybe that's just me. Maybe some people like the simplicity as a centering. The song is overwhelming, they can focus on this simple idea. But that just it doesn't tend to work for me. I'm gonna hit some lyrics and we'll wrap this one up. Or maybe not. I don't. I'm not gonna talk about the lyrics. I don't. What's the word I want? If you're interested, go check them out. But I don't suggest it. They're not safe for life. It touches on the topics of generational sexual abuse of multiple children. It's rape, it's child abuse, it's incest, it is just, and it's vulgar. It goes into quite a bit of detail. Now, granted, it's not just for shock value. I mean, there's definitely a shock value to it, but specifically, it's at the hands of a priest. So there seems to be some social commentary there. It's not extremely biting social commentary, but I suppose there's that. Uh, I'm just gonna wrap this up, though. I really wish I hadn't read those lyrics. Comments. Let me know what you thought of this track. Description box. What is this thing called? Linktree. It's got my links in it. Go check it out. Like, subscribe, ring the bell. Uh, what else? We got one more video today. It's a creator request. Small band gets in contact with me and I check out their works. Really looking forward to that. Hoping it is a palate cleanser for this. You guys know the drill. Critical, not cynical, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening.